All right, enough talk. It's time to go behind the curtains. And what I want to show you, and you see it on the whiteboard behind me, is a little known weapon that I started putting together in my late 20s. I put less than $400 a month in it back then. But now, in my late 40s, I'm almost 48 this month actually, it's quietly turned into something I would only describe as extraordinary. So in today's video, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the curtain back on a basic whole life policy. No smoke, no mirrors, just real numbers and real growth. You always hear me talk about specially designed whole life insurance, the ones we use for the infinite banking concepts. This is not one of those. But what I want to show you is that with time, patience, and discipline, you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked at what a basic whole life looks like. And that's what I want to share with you today. But before we get into that, I'm going to ask you all for a favor. Right now, can you hit that subscribe button? Yep, that one right there. And right above, there's a little bell. What I need you to do is smash that bell so that you're notified every single time I put out new content or we do live. Yeah, all right, let's dive in. One other thing too, I'm gonna do a special giveaway. You gotta stay to the end of this video and I'm gonna give you something you're gonna love. Actually, I think your kids are gonna love it. But let's talk about the rule of retention. This is something that's really important. Now here's the truth that nobody tells you. Income, your income, is only half of the battle. What really matters is how much of your income you actually keep. You gotta start small. You gotta cut what doesn't serve you, and that's what I did back so many years ago, actually almost 18 years ago. You gotta simplify where you overcomplicate. Challenge every single expense. Look at your budget and challenge every expense you have. Build your life around necessity. Build it around purpose, not status, not impulse, and don't let your emotions get the best of you. Use your logic. Logical decisions are always the best. Those extra few $100s should be compounding for you. They could be turning into thousands, tens of thousands. And then that capital, yes, that capital could be leveraged. And that leverage is how wealth is built, not through windfalls, just consistent, disciplined margin. This isn't about restriction, folks. This is about direction. Tell your money where to go instead of wondering where your money went. Live on less than you earn, always. And if you do that, you gain control. And you gain control of your decisions, your time, and your future. So what is the secret that separates the wealthy from the rest of us? Well, it's the quiet engine behind every single fortune that's ever been built. And you already know what it is, but I'm going to tell you again. Compound interest. So what is compound interest? Well, it's interest that builds on top of interest. It's growth that builds not in a straight line, but in a curve. Slow at first and then shockingly fast. Earl Nightingale talks about this, but you know another guy that talks about this is Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein famously called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. So let's get back to this $389 a month secret that I mentioned. Well, that secret isn't a secret at all. Many years ago, in 2008, I started a basic, off-the-shelf, whole life insurance policy. Not one of those custom ones, but I let it compound. I let it work for me. And you know what? Whether it's specially designed or basic, and compound interest works the same. You add contributions, which are your premium deposits. They earn interest and dividends, and that interest then earns interest on top of it and on top of it. So if you were to start with $1,000, and then every month you added $1,000, and you earn 10%, at first you'd see modest growth in the first year, but by the 5th year, the 10th year, that curve would start to take off. That compound interest would start to work for you. By year 20, by year 30, it's working for you solely. It's adding to itself without you doing a thing. But by delaying compounding interest, by making compounding interest start over because you decided to have your emotions kick in, you all of a sudden start to affect your future. And I know all of you have a future version of yourself. So in other words, delay costs you that compound interest curve. Most people never reach it. They never reach it because they stop and then they start. They stop and then they start. You see, builders, the wealthy, they let it run. They let compound interest do what it's supposed to. And that's what I want to show you. This is my basic whole life policy that I started in 2008. It's an old one, but it's a normal off-the-shelf one. It's a standard whole life. And I started this policy with $389 Let's not leave out that 6 cents. That's how much premium I paid into it. Now, let me just show you some things because I put it all on the board and I think this does a good job of summing it up. This policy was started in June of 2008. This is back when I was a financial advisor. I knew nothing about the infinite banking concept, but I did know compound interest. And I knew that if I started this policy, it would serve me well into the future. Well, I didn't just guess. I knew because I had an illustration. And I put that illustration up here to make it easier for all of you to see. And also because I didn't want you to see my policy number and all that good stuff. But nonetheless, let's just go up here. So $389 a month, that's what I put in. In the year ending 2023, my cash value, this is the available cash that I had to use, was $81,976.38. That's a lot of money. Now, it took time to get there, but I want to preface, during the period of years that I've been putting money into this, I have used this cash value over and over and over again. I used it as an emergency fund back in the day. I used it to buy cars back then. I used it for all sorts of things. So this money didn't just sit there. But the beauty is, because this whole life and almost every whole life that is coming from a mutually owned company that pays dividends, you benefit from uninterrupted compounding interest. So I know Albert Einstein called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world, but what if I got a chance to sit down with Albert and I got to say, actually, let me just ask him, hey, Albert, what's up, buddy? Hey, you loved compound interest and you were really good at math, but what if you could earn compound interest, but you could earn it uninterrupted? In other words, Albert, if you could use the money while not affecting the compound interest curve. What do you think of that? Well, thanks for commenting, Albert, but let's get back into this. So that was the cash value that was in the policy. Again, I used the money, but that's quite a bit of cash, right? I could buy a new car with that. I could pay off debt with that. I could start a new business with that much money. But let's go into some of the other things that are important to me, being a father and a family man. I also have a $283,140 death benefit as of year ending 2023. But hold on, there's something else I want to point out about that. How much did I start this policy with? I didn't start this policy with $283,140 in death benefit. I started this policy the way that most life insurance is started, at a fixed amount, $250,000. That was my death benefit when I started this in June of 2008. You see, so the death benefit is going up when the cash value is going up. But let's keep going. I also received this year, end of 2023, a dividend of $1,472.98. The growth over the prior year, so year-over-year growth, was $7,615.48. Now, that probably doesn't mean much until I tell you this. The premium deposits I put into this policy are $4,407.50. 389 times 12. $4,407.50 is what it works out to be per year. That's how much I put in. But from 2022 to 2023, this policy grew by $7,615.48. Let me help you understand that. You take $4,407.50, you put it into an account. You wait 12 months. You come back in the 13th month and you can take out $7,615.48. Now do you understand? How many of you want to do that? Have an account where you can put $4,407 and at the end of the year take out $7,600 plus dollars? Of course you do. Well, how could that happen? Time, consistency, and persistency. Compound interest, folks. That's what that is. It is years of compounding, but it also is years of compounding uninterrupted. That's key. This money was never interrupted when I bought cars, paid off debt, used it to start businesses, ever. It just kept compounding, which is why if I go from 2022 to 2023, my cash-on-cash return is 63.11%. My cumulative return, and I did a video on this, I'll put it up at the end. It explains cumulative returns versus cash-on-cash returns. Drastic difference and drastically different uses for those two types of return. Cash on cash would be important if I wanted to know how much I could use for every new dollar I put in, right? Cumulative return is kind of how you'd look at a lot of investments that you put money in, you leave it sit there, you never touch it. You want to know the cumulative return. Well, the cumulative return on this policy at the end of 2023 was 17.05%. That's still not bad at all. But hold on. What I want to do is I want to show you the power of time and the compounding curve. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go year by year. And we're going to go faster now that you know what each one is. So year ending 2024, 1 year past what I just said, the cash value has grown to $90,408.53. My death benefit has grown to $287,769. That means my dividend has also gone up. Otherwise, the death benefit wouldn't have gone up. My dividend was $1,710.62, and my growth over the prior year was $8,063.12. You hear me say this often. I talk about a policy, and I talk about its guarantees, and I talk about its growth. And how I explain it is I say, every year you'll have more money than you did the year before. Do I not have more money than I did the year before? Absolutely. Did I not grow more than I did the year before? Yep. And the cash-on-cash return went from 63 to 82.9%. Cumulative return in 1 year went from 17.05 to 28.2%. How is that possible? This isn't some magic hocus pocus stuff. This is compounding interest. Exactly what Earl Nightingale talked about, exactly what Albert Einstein called the eighth wonder of the world. The only difference is this is uninterrupted compounding. Let's keep going. 2025, year ending. That would be this year coming up. My cash value, $99,436, which is interesting because that is right here. This policy statement just showed up in the mail in June, and this is the statement I'm going off of. $99,000, up $9,000 from the prior year. But hold on, my death benefit, look at it, went from $287 to $293. My dividend went from $1,700 to over $2,000. My year-over-year growth in cash value went from $8,063 to $8,598 and change. That's a 95% cash-on-cash return, and my cumulative return went from 28 to 32. Are you seeing? All we're talking about is time and compound interest of your money. That is it. Interest, earning interest, year over year, faster and faster. Let's keep going. 2026, into the future, my cash value will be $109,000. You see, the beauty is we can do that because an illustration provided by the insurance company shows you. As long as dividends are what they were the year before, these are the values. So we can predict going forward, 109. My death benefit goes up from 293 to 298. That's important. That's protection for my family. $2,267 is my dividend, not too shabby. My growth over the prior year went from $8,500 to $9,563. That's almost $1,000 growth in 1 year. Remember, folks, I'm putting $389 a month, $4407.50 per year into this. When I look at my cash-on-cash return, I went from 95% to 116.9%. My cumulative return jumped from 32 to 37, and I just did one more year, 2027. I'm going to go from 109 to 119,130. My death benefit's going to go over $305,000. My dividend went from 22 to 25.14. My growth year over year went from 95.63, that's the net growth, to 10,130. That's 129.8% cash on cash return year over year. My cumulative return jumps to 42%. I'm just trying to explain how this works. This is a normal, off-the-shelf, whole life insurance policy. I didn't even know what IBC was back then. And you know, I did one step further. I just went in and I said, what would have been the differences if back then I had started a specially designed and engineered whole life insurance policy using the exact same premium deposits, which were $4407, and projecting that out. You know what the biggest difference would have been? There wouldn't have been significantly more cash value, although there was more cash value. The difference would have been more cash value early on. See, that's the biggest difference. When we design the specially designed and engineered whole lives to be used with the infinite banking concept, all we're doing is we're designing it with a lower death benefit. So this design that we did here has a significantly lower death benefit. It didn't start with $250,000 like the one I actually own did. Okay, it started with $111,107 death benefit. Then the cash value in the first year on this existing policy, if I were to roll this back to 2008, I had $0 of cash value in the first year. I put $44,0750 in, but I had zero cash value to use the first year. This policy that we specially designed and engineered would have had $3,459 of that $44,07 available in the very first year. Matter of fact, I would have had money available immediately in the first 30 days, about $3,000 to use. But then as it went by, the second, third, fourth, fifth year, I had significantly more cash value to use than I would have in this original policy, which was a normal off-the-shelf whole life. All this does is proves that compound interest is real, even with a vanilla whole life policy, an off-the-shelf one. But there is a way to make the same engine roar louder. That is the specially designed policy that I talked about. One that is structured for maximum cash value early on. So you can solve your problems now and in the future without interrupting any of that compounding interest. You see, that's the biggest difference. We can design these policies to do anything you want and be for any premium deposit you want. I mentioned, back then, I was in my late 20s. I started this policy with $389 a month. That was a stretch for me back then. Now, I put significantly more now than I did back then, but that's what you would do. You'll build up to it, but don't ever think that you don't have enough to get started because you see videos for $10,000. And also, there's another thing. A lot of times, people will have just a little bit that they can save like I did here, but then they've got some money that they've saved up. You can dump that money into the policy and get that money working all up front. Now, we're not going to go into the numbers behind that, but it would drastically change all of these numbers if you did a dump in. You'd have way more money, way more, because you have more money compounding. That compound interest curve works faster and faster and faster. The more money, the more time, and the more consistency behind it. It's like turbocharging the cash value. Now, remember at the beginning of this video, I told you I had something that I wanted to give away. Well, we're at that point. So if you're still with me, here's how you enter in today's giveaway. All you need to do first, I mentioned it earlier, subscribe to this channel. Click that subscribe button, but then I need you to comment down below the book. Well, let me give you a visual. Comment the book down below. And what we're going to do is send one lucky subscriber our new children's book called The Companion. This book's an epic journey for parents, grandparents, and even kids. And all you need to do is subscribe to this and comment the book, and we'll reach out to you for your info so that we can drop one of these in the mail. With that being said, folks, I hope this video shines some light on some smaller dollar amounts. I hope it shines some light on compounding interest. And I hope it shines some light on you getting started now, not waiting, because compound interest loves time. The longer of a runway you give it, the better off it is. I don't care if you're 60 or if you're 19 years old, the time is now. It's like that old saying, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, 20 years ago is what everybody says, but the best time is now because that's the only time you can control. And you want to control this because you want to control your money, but you also want to control that compound interest curve. So don't treat this like a prescription. Talk to a professional. So I always want to kind of give everybody a little insight. Your policy might differ from mine. I started this when I was young. So don't treat this as a prescription. Talk to a professional. Talk to one of our money mentors. And how you can do that is just ask us to give you a link to book a call down below. And what we'll do is we'll look at giving you some personalized guidance. We're going to help understand your needs and goals. We're going to put together the steps. We're going to help you make small changes that will compound into real momentum. With that being said, folks, thanks for watching today. And if you found this helpful, make sure you smash the like button. Hit it a bunch of times. I don't even think it lets you do that, but do it anyway. Share it with someone who needs to see this. And don't miss out on my next video right here, how I missed out on over $10 million with the infinite banking concepts. Oof! That one dives deeper and even deeper into what we just talked about. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much.